What is going on, everyone? Thanks for checking into our latest TDR Cannabis in 5 presented by Dutchie. I am your host, Shad Dales, and I've got an interesting one here today that may be helpful for you, especially if you're an investor in this space. I'm going to take a look into something every serious investor needs to understand, what most people get wrong about cannabis investing. As we know, this industry is full of hype, fast news, and even faster sell-offs. And every time there's an announcement, a state legalizing, a company merging, or talk of federal reform, investors rush in expecting huge returns. But what happens next is almost always the same. Prices jump, excitement peaks, then reality hits. So today we're going to break down the most common investor mistakes, why cannabis stocks are so volatile, and how you can look at this market with some clearer eyes. So let's get into our latest TDR Cannabis in 5 presented by Dutchie. But first, a quick word from Morgan & Morgan. Hey everyone, there's a reason smart investors celebrate when their portfolio jumps 40% in a year, just like there's a reason Morgan & Morgan is America's largest injury law firm. Think about it. When you're investing, you want the right team in your corner. The same is true if you're injured in dealing with an insurance company, and that is where Morgan & Morgan comes into the equation. Why? Well, they've got more than 1,000 attorneys and over 100 offices nationwide, and they've been fighting for people for over 35 years, and their track record is hard to ignore. Let me explain a little bit further. Case in point, in Florida, a client was offered $350,000, but walked away with $12 million. In Pennsylvania, another client, they turned $650,000 offer into $26 million. That's a 40x return. So in total, Morgan & Morgan, they've recovered more than $25 billion for over 500,000 clients. So really, when you hire him, it's like bringing in a legal army that has your back. Because if you're injured due to someone else's negligence, you deserve to be paid. And let's be honest, not all law firms are created equal. But with Morgan & Morgan, their fee is free unless they win. You can start your claim right now by clicking the link in the description below or by scanning this QR code on your screen with your phone. At the end of the day, if you want what you deserve, make sure you go in with the right team by contacting Morgan & Morgan today. Now, let's get back to the rest of our video. All right, let's now get into it and let's talk about what most investors get wrong when it comes to cannabis trends here today. So first up, number one of the biggest mistakes investors make is thinking headlines equal value. You see an article about a new license, a partnership, or a state opening to cannabis, and suddenly everyone wants in. But here's the truth in cannabis. Most big announcements, they take months or even years to actually happen. Sometimes they don't happen at all. Maybe the deals fell apart. Maybe the state delays the rollout. Maybe regulators change the rules halfway through. We've all seen this before. So the hype gets priced in immediately, but the payoff takes time. That's why you'll often see stocks jump one day and then crash the next, because expectations get way ahead of reality. And that's putting it mildly. Now let's look at number two. And another big misunderstanding is treating cannabis like normal growth industries like tech, energy, or even retail. And I'll be honest with you, it's not even close. Cannabis companies deal with a completely different level of regulation and risk. Why do I say that? Well, they face inconsistent laws between states, no full access to banking, limited capital markets, and brutal taxes because of IRS 280E. For those that don't know, that code doesn't allow cannabis companies to deduct normal business expenses, which means even profitable companies can look weak on paper. So really, when investors look at this space like it's the next tech boom, they're missing the real challenges that make this market different than most. So now let's talk about the big one and the most common one, and that's volatility, because cannabis is without a doubt one of the most unpredictable markets out there. Data shows cannabis stocks, they can swing 3 to 4 times harder than the overall stock market. So that means the highs are definitely higher, but the lows, they are brutal. And part of that, let's face it, is emotion. Investors overreact to good news and bad news as well. But part of it is structure, low trading volume, limited institutional money, and few analysts that are following the space as of now. So when you put those all together and you get wild swings, they make it feel more like crypto than consumer goods. And that's the reality. So really, a lot of investors, they do believe that once the federal government finally legalizes or reschedules cannabis, everything will explode upward overnight. Stocks will move rather fast in the beginning, but in the long term, that's not how it works. So even if reform happens, and I'm talking not only rescheduling, but descheduling, here's some things to watch for. There's going to be new regulations, new taxes, and a long rollout period. Some states will adjust right away, while others will move slowly. And when the FDA or the DEA gets involved, we know there's red tape bureaucracy that's involved, which means long, drawn-out processes and decisions. So yes, reform is a big deal. Rescheduling, stocks will explode short term. But thinking long term it's a magic switch is a mistake. The smart move is to assume that this takes time and to plan for that accordingly. And another big misunderstanding is assuming all cannabis companies are basically alike, because they're not. There are big differences across the industry. Some companies, they indeed grow the plant, some process or extract it into oils and other concentrates, and others focus on retail or brand development, and then you've got the biotech and pharmaceutical side, which is a totally different world. So when you factor all this in, each one faces unique challenges, from regulation to taxes to indeed market competition. So really, lumping every company together doesn't work. You have to understand which part of the value chain each one operates in and judge it by that. Then you have to look at which ones are profitable too. Think of GTI, think of Trulieve. These are big companies that are producing real results. And here's another thing that investors often overlook, and that's indeed the black market. It still very much exists. In some US states, unlicensed sellers make up a huge share of total cannabis sales. Why? Well, because they don't pay taxes, they don't deal with compliance costs, and they can sell much cheaper. So that then undercuts the legal market and puts pressure on prices. So when investors assume the legal market will automatically win, they're missing a key factor here. The illegal side still very much exists, and it still impacts the economics of this entire industry. For those that follow the space, I know you get this, but for the new audience coming in, important to understand these fundamentals. So when you pull this all together, hype cycles, policy risk, inconsistent regulation, black market competition, it explains why this sector keeps creating bubbles and then we've seen it time and time again. Stocks surge on optimism, then they crash when the real numbers don't match the whole story. Many investors buy really early or really late and hold through the correction and end up being very frustrated. And because cannabis is still treated as a high-risk space, there's not much institutional money to stabilize it. So that makes every emotional move hit that much harder. This is all retail-driven right now within this industry. And retail investors have one thing in common: they are emotional. So how do smart investors approach all this? Well, one, they slow down. They study fundamentals like balance sheets, margins, cash flow, and market share. They look for companies that are vertically integrated, managing everything from grow to sale. They favor operators with low debt, strong management, and clear strategy. And most importantly, they understand that this industry takes patience. I know some of you do this, but you can't trade cannabis stocks like meme stocks. You have to think like a long-term investor, not a gambler chasing headlines. I know this industry grabs everyone's attention based on those headlines, and we will see stocks move very fast once rescheduling is announced. But once we get past that, this is important to understand. So really, here's the upside in all this. When investors become smarter, it actually helps the entire regulated cannabis industry. Why do I say that? Because as capital shifts away from hype and towards companies that are compliant, it forces the market to mature. And it also sends a clear message to lawmakers that cannabis isn't a get-rich-quick story. It's a real industry that creates real jobs with responsible players building sustainable businesses. So when you have that kind of credibility, it moves reform forward faster than any headline or political promise ever could. And that's really the biggest misconception that's going on here right now. So to wrap it up, cannabis investing, it isn't broken here. It's just misunderstood. People chase the news, which I get. They expect fast profits, but they ignore the details. But the truth is, the industry rewards patience, discipline, and long-term view. One day you'll see that. If you can separate hype from fundamentals, you'll not only make better decisions, you'll help strengthen the entire regulated market. Do you agree with me on all this? Let me know in the comments below. Drop your comments. I'd love to get your feedback of what you think and whether or not you agree or disagree with how this industry performs based on hype, or if you're looking at this as a longer term view. As usual, if you like this breakdown, give it a like, smash on that bell, and subscribe to us here at TDR. That's it for now. It's the latest TDR Cannabis in 5 presented by Dutchie. I'm your host, Shad Dales. So long, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks again for watching.